Hello, welcome to an unexpected podcast. There are three of us here today. There's me in Boston, there's Rob in DC, and we've got Rainier in South Korea. And I'll be playing host today. Couple things. First, we have a new Facebook page, so go ahead and search on Facebook for an unexpected podcast and check out our Facebook page. That's an alternate place to have discussions. And we continue to have discussions on the YouTube channel. So if you want to go there and post there, we will take a look at it. Today, we are going to be talking about Isengard warriors. And before we get there, we do have a list. All right, everybody. So this is a list from Joseph Richmond, who says he's UK based. And he's been looking at the UK meta from Articon, which implies a horde, which is something that Mick certainly brought across from his experience at Articon. So he was experimenting with a Mordor Serpent Horde Alliance at 650, and this is his list. So the first figure, which is the army leader here, is Suladan with Armored Horse. Good pick for a start. He has 9 Haradrim warriors with bow, 9 Haradrim warriors with spear. So that's an 18-figure warband right there. Gorth, captain of the Morannon, is his second hero. So some good punch there. He's got 6 orc warriors with shield, 6 orc warriors with spear. And then he has Kardush the Firecaller with 6 orc trackers and 6 warriors with spear. So that gives him a little. It gives him fury to overcome terror if need be, and he has some fireball punch there. And then he has a ring wraith, an ordinary ring wraith with just 2 might, and that has 6 orc trackers and 6 orc warriors with spear. So it comes in at 58 models, which is impressive, 21 bows, which is also impressive, and 650 points. And just as far as the explanation of his theory, he basically is saying, he knows this was going to be a squishy horde. He's got Goroth who can sacrifice folks to stay in the fight. He's got Kardush who can sacrifice stuff to continue to cast spells. He has the Wraith from March, and then he'll have 7 will to do some shenanigans with, and 21 bows, even though 12 are orc bows. There's his theory basically is that quantity has a quality all its own here, and I don't think he's necessarily wrong about that. And he's also hoping to outnumber folks and get the re-rolling 1s to wound with the orcs. So thoughts on this? Well, let me sketch out my thoughts without any specific recommendations here, and then maybe we can discuss. So on paper, I think this looks good. It has a decent number of models. It does have the 21 bows. It does have Suladan, who's a great hero and who's going to be battering all of these guys. And it does have Goroth, who's a decent hitter at 650 points for backup. And it's got Kardush, who's got some decent offensive spells, and he's got Fury. And if necessary, you can sacrifice Kardush and fuel up the Ring Wraith once he's down to 1 will. I guess my only concern, and this is a concern that Joseph acknowledges in his post, is that all of these numbers don't add up to enough. Just because this list is too squishy, that it's going to be a bit too light to fight. Because while it has numbers, that's basically kind of all it has as far as threats from the warriors. It's all fight 3. It is all going to be, defense 5, or in most cases, defense 4, and in some cases, defense 3. And my concern is that other hordes will overwhelm it, and other stuff that is not a horde will just chew through it too quickly for the horde to really come into effect. So I guess before we get into specific fixes yeah, well, let me toss that to the floor and see if people agree with that.
I think I agree with that, though, to be honest. I'm a huge fan of hordes. We've said it before, and it's kind of interesting seeing the UK meta semi shift towards that. I know in America we've kind of been like high on hordes for the past 3 or 4 years, but yeah, I think I just go with Matt. It's very non-threatening in combat is what I would say, and even the shooting, in a sense, if you come, Matt said it, if you come against horde shooting, corsairs, Athelian Rangers, or just anything like fiefdoms, they're going to outshoot it. So in a way, it's very much like I like the heroic march, get the guys there, but once the guys get there, they're just going to die. So I would, yeah, I think you can throw in some fight for with the serpent horde aspect of it pretty easily. Actually, you have models that are 7 points, you can up more for 1 more point to a serpent guard, that's fight 4. I also like the idea of putting a little more heavy hitting things that can be sprinkled in, and I mean serpent riders, because they have lance, fight 4, only 13 points. It's still keeping that budget because you are budgeting and using all of your points. You have 50-50 with bow and shield. I personally would take some of the spears, or not bone shield, excuse me, spear and non-spear, 50-50. I personally would take away some of the spears because I don't think you need 50-50 with that large of a horde. I would put those, and again, in the Soledad's Warband to get some fight for some heavy hitting things, like maybe some Abrakan Guard and some Serpent Riders. That's my take on it. If you want to keep the full, like, here comes the 50 plus models at 650 points and keep all the bows, I think it's possible. But like as an opponent, again, I see it and it's kind of like, it's soft, it's squishy, but it has the numbers, which is good. But just toss in those little, I don't know, those little like chocolate chips into the cookie, because you have a good cookie. You need that heavy hitting stuff, which is the chocolate chips. We want to see a chocolate chip cookie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with anything you guys said. I think that it accomplishes the goal of being a lot of models at a very small points total, but it almost seems like it's sacrificing a little bit of game utility in order to accomplish the goal for the goal's sake, as opposed to actually really adding a lot of power to the list. You see a lot of very low defense. There's a good selection of heroes, but with a horde that big, you're going to end up using their might for things you don't want to use their might for. So at the very least, I would at least try to get in like a Guritz or something who can be your guy, who gets you on Maelstrom where you want to be, who gets your marches in so you don't have to spend marches off of like Suladon or even the Wraith. And I think that 58 models is great, but you could stand to go down to say like 50 models and use that point savings to, like you said, sprinkle in some better troops, get in something tougher like some of the Moranan orcs, get in some of the more elite Serpent Horde troops like the Serpent Guard, for example, maybe even get some of the Abrakan Guard for a little bit of extra like troop level punch. So that way you actually have something that threatens beyond just the numbers, because like you said, a tougher army will outlast it and another dedicated horde will outfight it. So if you look at, for example, I think the inspiration is seeing, all of the various Lake Town armies, for example, which have huge numbers of relatively crappy troops, but they're designed to work a little better in that format, I think, with all of their interlocking and stacking buffs. And like the Lake Town Guard are all going to be fight 4, so they're going to win more fights than this army is going to win, for example, right? They're going to have a larger banner, for example. So I think that the idea is there, but I think it could just be tightened so that it has a little bit more brick to it.
Yeah, I agree. And what about? Oh, sorry. He
he
says possibility putting the Shadow Lord. I like the idea of that to make your shooting no one can contest with it.
Yeah,
but you're gonna have to like take 50 points away. I think it is if you want to toss them in, or maybe 40 points. I do like the idea of a double wraith, though. I was actually thinking maybe Guritz for another ring wraith, another generic ring wraith that's discount points, and then you have 3 casters, 2 of which have Black Dart, two of which have March 2, and that kind of fits to your whole thing. It fits the Guritz because Maelstrom, now you have March basically everywhere to get them wherever you want, and then you're also saving maybe like 5 more points to again upgrade your guys to become that much better.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was looking at that. One thing that's coming across from everything we're saying here that I think is probably worth noting is that horde armies aren't scary just because they have a lot of models, with the possible exception of Goblin Town that has a whole lot of models. But it's still got some other tricks that kind of add to that. Horde armies are scary because they have a lot of models and they do something else really well. Like, the Lake Town horde gets to fight for and has a banner everywhere, and has an abundance of might.
And free hero combats.
The betrayer based serpent horde shooting has a bunch of figures, and they're all re-rolling to wounds when they shoot and when they fight. Corsairs have a whole bunch of figures, and they all have fight for and throwing weapons. This just has a whole bunch of figures, and it doesn't kind of have anything else. So, as disappointing as it's going to be to the listeners out there who relish controversy, I think we're all in agreement that this list needs to be taken in a direction. I'm not sure we all necessarily agree which direction it should be taken in. I'm not sure there's a right answer to the question of which direction it should be taken in, because you could take it in a bunch of different directions. If you want to have this thing grind better, I think you drop some of the orc trackers and you upgrade the guys with shield to Moranans. If you want this thing to shoot, I think you are better off going with Betrayer and a bunch of Haradrim. If you want this thing to have a bunch of guys backed up by magic, with some shooting, then maybe the Shadow Lord is the way to go. But I don't know in which direction you want to take it. But I think at this point, this particular list, I think is trying to do too many things and probably doesn't do any of them well enough. And you should pick your thing, the way you're going to try and win the game, either by grinding people, shooting them down, or magic them, and then take the list in that direction. And yeah, I think 50 is probably a reasonable number at 650 to still be a really decent horde, and then just have an additional threat there.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that, but I still do think the base of this army is good. Like, you have the right idea to like hoard it out and like have things within. But yeah, again, just add a few things to it to give that punch. Because again, like back to what Matt said, you think Corsairs, it's not that they have 50 to 60 guys, it's also that they have 20 crossbows, throwing weapons, backstabbers, and good heroes. Anything Harad 2 can have these different things. Lake Town has like mega heroes and up to fight 4 as well. So yeah, just try to use that as a base and figure out how you could do that, because you have the banner, that's good, and a little bit of magic, that's good, but try to make everything else amplified a little better.
Yeah, I don't think anybody here is saying take out Suladan, because I think if you're going to do if you're going to do an effective evil horde, Suladan is almost, he's the first figure you buy, and then you figure out kind of what do you put around Suladan to make the horde scary. But I'm not sure we've got quite the right mix to do that here.
Yeah, and let us know how you do. If you do take it, let us know how you do. I mean, we're prone to be like, don't do this, and people win with this list that we said we didn't like. So yeah, just let us know.
All right. So I guess with that, we will go over to discussing Isengard.
Yeah. And we are just going over Isengard. We're not going over Dunlin.
We're not going over Dunlin. This is just an Isengard warrior discussion. But before we do that, does anybody have a copy of Gondor at War? Oh, I'm sorry. Rohan at war in front of them. Never mind. War and
I
Rohan.
do actually. Yes.
I have one too.
gosh.
Because there is one Isengard hero that we did not discuss last time for time purposes that we can discuss this time. So, Rob, do you want to maybe talk about Snaga?
Yeah. All right. So, Snaga Orc Captain. He is a hero of fortitude for the Isengard list, even though he has the Orc Mordor infantry hero keywords. For 50 points, you're going to get a fairly standard captainy style profile, 6 inches of move, a fight of 4, and a shoot of 5+, a strength of 4, a defense of 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, 3 courage, and your standard named captain, 3 might, 1 will, 1 fate. He has an armor and a sword. His heroic actions are heroic challenge. And his 2 special rules are Servant of Mordor. He can only ever include orc models in his warband. And Cunning Mind. Snaga can choose not to take part in a friendly hero model's heroic action and still be able to act normal later in the phase, even if by not participating as part of the heroic action, he would normally not be able to act that turn. Additionally, if Snaga chooses to participate in a friendly hero model's heroic action, he does not have to remain within a specific range of the hero. So, stats-wise, there's not a whole lot there to write home about, and he doesn't really have a great set of heroics because heroic challenge, as I'm sure we can all agree, is not the most useful heroic there, though having it on a hero of fortitude is a little bit interesting.
So he can challenge. He can challenge that captain,
right? And I'm not sure he'd win, but
I was going to say and lose.
Yeah. But really what you're taking him for, I mean, I guess you're taking him for 2 reasons. One, the Cunning Mind rule, which is actually quite unique. I'm not.
It's not quite unique. It's unique.
Entirely unique. Yeah, yes. It's entirely unique. Actually, no other hero in the game does anything like this. So he can choose to ignore heroic actions as if he was essentially an impossible ally, right? And if he does take part in an action, he can go off wherever he needs without sticking close to the hero that called it. I think that last part is a little interesting if you want to kind of slingshot him in a different direction, maybe onto an objective later in the game. Or if you kind of want to play the trick where you call the move, but then you need another model to go in and have the flexibility to, say, join a combat that it wouldn't be able to do if it was part of the heroic or had to stay close to the hero. I think that tricks like that work a lot better when the hero is really scary, like, for example, in a Elendil and a Red Alliance, where you can call a heroic and have him ignore it and then do whatever he wants later in the turn. But it's still
with Snaga.
Right, exactly. But it's still an interesting ability.
Where he goes off and does his slingshot and everybody in the other army is like, what's that idiot doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Just kill it.
Yeah, he's a free kill. Okay.
So he certainly has the option to ignore a heroic move and then run into a basic hero fortitude and challenge them and die. But yeah, I mean, the other reason you're probably taking him is because you're running one of the Uglux Scout Legion, and he brings 3 might at not many more points over a captain.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it is worth saying he's 50 points. So
yeah, he's very cheap.
He's not great, but he's not expensive. So
he's 3 might points on a body that can kind of stay behind your line, and you're not super concerned about what happens to him, and he doesn't mess up your heroics.
His heroic actions?
Yeah.
Heroic challenge.
Yes,
period.
That was, and let me try to get this straight. So heroic challenge, if the opponent denies it, there's no penalties, right?
Basically.
Okay, just verifying that it's useless. Okay.
I have no idea because I've never used it and I've never seen it used.
I've used it never. I've accepted it once, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. So,
well, I was gonna say he could play a role with like a whole bunch of other foot heroes to where you slingshot him to a different part of the battlefield, use like Uglux to heroic strike, then him to heroic combat, and play those kind of different like things. But you can't even heroic challenge. I don't know. It's a really odd profile. Again, it's pretty cheap for 3 might, and then you will occasionally find somebody for some weird game meta play with the either ignore heroic or be part of the heroic and move somewhere completely different. I think thematically it's a little weird to me that this guy, he's the one that's like, yeah, why can't we have some meat? And then immediately gets killed. So I guess that's the challenge, right? That he's like, hey, Ugluk, I'm hungry. But like,
Yeah,
They should rename the thing meat spec on the menu, boys.
they should.
That's a special
right?
rule because he's just gonna get killed, and
Well,
then the
that's what
opponent like
Ugluk
goes
does,
in a
doesn't
frenzy.
it? So I guess Ugluk could kill this guy.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I mean, thematically, I find it a little weird that probably the most weird, cowardly orc in the entire film trilogy is a 3 might, fight 4, strength 4. But the game doesn't always 100% track with what the movies.
and you got to sell those models.
So yeah, I mean, I think that where I would personally take him is if I'm running the Uglux Scouts Legendary Legion, he is one of the options there. He's a cheap enough captain for 3 might. And you've already got enough other heroes that have march and various skills that you need. So he's just there to pad out numbers. That would be how I'd use him.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only time I've used him. That's the only time I've seen him is in Uglux Legendary Legion. He's just there to bring bodies. I don't think I have ever seen his cunning mind. I mean, I haven't played against him a lot. I haven't played with him a lot, but I know I've never used his cunning mind rule.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't. Nobody's ever used it against me.
Is his role just kind of like the Oath Maker, where he's a might battery, but of course the Oath Maker has like a relevant.
Yeah. I mean, he's a might battery. That's essentially it. And I guess I also struggle to come up with a circumstance where that cunning mind rule is really useful. I mean, I can think of them, but they're so circumstance dependent.
Yeah.
That I guess the way to use him is to call the heroic move, tie up a bunch of stuff, and then you just kind of keep him as a reserve and hope you've got enough holes so that when something counterattacks, he can get in and kind of like soak off the critical hero or go to a circumstance where he can. I mean, one thing he can do is you can wait to have somebody. You can do your heroic move, tie up most of the stuff. If you can't tie up all of the stuff, wait till the rest of the stuff moves, and then use him to go into like random guy that's like maybe fighting 2 other guys, call a heroic combat, and then kind of use that to reposition. Mm-hmm. But if your opponent knows what he's doing, he can kind of counter that. But I mean, I guess that is something to think about. That's the best use I can think of him, is to use him as kind of that heroic combat reserve where you call the heroic move with somebody else, and Snaga just kind of sits back, looks for a heroic combat opportunity off of random warrior who's fighting 1 or 2 of your other orcs, and use that to kind of create ways to mess people up. I think that's right.
I think that, and the only other absolute fringe case is for some reason you need to call a march and go one way with most of the army, but want him to go a completely different way to grab an objective or something, so he still gets the extra move but doesn't have to stay near your hero. But that would be one of those weird like 1 in a million situations, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't really, too, because he has 3 might too, so it's
I mean, I guess end of the move where like you need to call the heroic move, but you also need somebody to go and grab an objective. I guess you can use him for that. But I mean, with all that said, 50 points for 3 might or captain isn't a bad investment. So,
I mean, and 2 attacks at strength 4, right? I mean, he can bully basic troops, like you said, wait for the move to resolve and then go pull off a spear support and beat it up, maybe heroic combat off of it. So,
yep. Fair enough. All right, so that is the last straggler of the Isengard
how appropriate.
Heroes. Yeah, exactly. So we can go over to.
He ignored your heroic podcast and showed up.
Yeah, he did. He showed up late. Exactly. All right, so we're over to the Warriors of Isengard, and the first one is the Urukai Scout. Is that one you can do there, Rainier?
Yeah, sure. So we have the Urukai Scout. He's kind of the basic Uruk, I guess.
Well, I'm not sure he's the basic Uruk. He's one of.
He's the one without heavy armor. Right. Let's just say like. So we've got for 8 points. You have Fight 4, shooting on a 4, strength 4, D4, 1 attack, 1 wound, and 3 courage. He has armor and a sword, so it's like that light infantry kind of gets going. You can equip him with a banner, a bow, or a shield. Now, yeah, that's you have him. This is your typical guy. You of course see him in scouts lists. You don't usually see him in pure Uruk lists typically, because you can get 1 more point for another might, which would make him defense 6, which will be probably the next model we're talking about. So yeah, he's your basic. Is the Urukai bow is 18 inches, strength 3, right?
Strength 3, yeah.
So
Dwarf
that's in my opinion the only reason I would take him, to kind of get that strength 3 pot shot here and there. Or of course, if you take a horde scout list, you could take a lot of these guys and it could be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, you see the Urakai Scouts show up in the various legendary legions. And I think there's 2 of them. There's the Uglux Scouts legendary legion, and then there's the Lurtz legendary legion, where both of them, if you take Maher with these guys get upgraded to 8-inch moves for free. And then you see lots and lots of them, and I think that's a reasonable way to go. With that said, I mean, you can also get Maher and get these upgraded to get that bonus for +1 point. I'm not sure that's the way to go.
What about the drum? Because you get the drum with them and kind of position like 6 or 8. Just all of a sudden they're in range, and the next turn they can shoot.
Well, okay. So if you're doing all of them, that's fine.
Yeah.
If you're doing like a half a dozen of them scattered throughout the rest of your army, you can't really do that, because when you sound the drum, nobody else can charge. So it's not like you can sound the drum, everybody charges, your main line charges, and then these guys kind of run around the flanks, which would be great. But you can't do that with these guys. I mean, what I guess you could do is you could, if you got the 8 inches and you really wanted some extra move to kind of run around the flanks and trap guys, obviously you can't charge them, but you could, maybe put them into a position to trap somehow. But I mean, you could call a march with these guys, just charge with everybody first, and then, kind of march around the back. But I mean, you still can't, unless if there's a second rank of spearmen, you can't get within an inch of them. So you're not really going to be trapping those guys. And, I think you're better off, doing other things with the points. But, on the other hand, if you're going to have a whole army of these guys and you want to do the, I'm going to have them move 8 inches, and then I'm going to drum, and then I'm going to march, and the whole army is moving 14 inches. That all works out. So I mean, I guess what I'm saying is you either want an army of these guys, in which case you play it as that kind of foot cavalry type of army, or there really isn't that much reason to take these guys. If you want to throw Maher in with, some of these guys, give them bows, and have it be like a mobile bow force, I guess you can. I'm not sure that's the best use of points, but it's a use of points. So
I think that you either take a whole lot of these guys, in which case you're playing the Legion, or you just don't take them, right? And I think that's why the Legion exists, because it gives them a home where you can take a whole lot of them, because there's nothing inherently wrong with the profile, except that it, sits right next to the Urukai Warrior, which we're going to talk about next.
Yep.
It does have Woodland Creature, which is a very nice ability to have, both in the Legion and in just the pure Isengard army. So there is some mobility there if you're going to do, a Marauder 8-inch move, and you can ignore woods to get some flanking or some objective play. But fundamentally, I think you're taking them in the Legion, where you're taking, 36 plus of them, depending on which Legion you do. And then they get all of the tricks. They still get the Woodland Creature. They're going to be 8-inch move, but for free. If you're doing the Uglux Scouts, where you can also take Orcs, that pads out your numbers. So you can take a whole lot of strength 3 bows with them that can, move 7 inches and still fire. So I think that they very much, to me, only really have a home in the 2 Legions, where I think they do really well, though. So,
yep. To be clear, the woodland creature special rule, they only get in either a pure Isengard list or one of the legendary legions. So You can't ally in these guys into another list to
Definitely.
get woodland creature, but
Mhm.
not that you would necessarily want to do that. Okay, so nothing more heard on Urukai Scouts. I guess we can go over to the Urukai Warriors. So Urukai Warriors are 9 points for base. Their profile is a pretty good one. It's move 6, fight 4, 4+ shoot value. So they shoot and they fight pretty well. They are strength 4. They do a lot of damage. They're defense 5. They're tough. They have 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 3. So they're, a little more courageous than the ordinary orc. They come with heavy armor and a sword, and they have options. They can obviously get the banner for 25 points. They can get a crossbow for 2 points. They can get a pike for 1 point, and they can get a shield for 1 point. This is the Urukai Warrior is kind of one of the best kind of all-around stat lines in the game. I don't think it's underpriced because at 9 points you pay a decent amount for it, but I think it is appropriately priced. And if you want a warrior that kind of does everything well, this is one of the warriors to get, because you can go up to 10 points, give them a shield, make them defense 6, and then you've got a nice strong battle line. You can give them a pike instead, and then you can stack 2 guys behind folks, and you can get a ton of fight 4 attacks on somebody, or you can throw a pike behind an orc and drive that up to fight 4. Or you can spend 2 points and you can give these guys crossbows and give them really heavy, a really heavy hitting power figure that's still defense 5. So, still ordinary bow shooting back at it, still only kill them on 6s. This is, as I said, probably one of the best all-around figures in the game. Why don't we chat a bit about the figures, then we can talk about how to use them, because I think there's a couple different ways you can use these guys. So
yeah, they are, as Matt said, just really well-rounded. I think if anybody's just getting into the game, I'd start with Isengard, because they're just straightforward. Fight 4, strength 4 is really good, and the options you can give them, also the crossbow that they can get, is really nasty. I'm kind of I was always a fan of the Arbalisters because they have that kind of combat aspect. These Urukai warriors with a crossbow are even more combat-y. You're talking about a strength 4, defense 5, fight 4 guy with a crossbow. That's pretty nasty. You usually want to get to the opponent's archers really fast and knock them out of the game. When you go up against Isengard, you get to the opponent's archers and you're like, oh shoot, they're actually going to kill me. Oh no, it's a trap.
What do you mean you outfight me?
Yeah, wait, what? Yeah, so I like that. I also like the customability. Pikes with these guys is really good because, of course, that punch we're talking about that they have, if you have 3 dice to that, 2 pikes and that, maybe even a banner, 4 dice to the battle line, that's pretty good. I mean, we, again, back to comparing it to, we talk about Easterling pike blocks and different things like that. This is a pike block that actually kills stuff. So it's really, really good in that aspect. And I just think the warrior itself works really good by itself as well. So again, if you have your a crossbow guy randomly somewhere, you throw him in a fight, he's going to contribute. A pike, usually you flank to get to the back ranks, you get the pike, it's still the same guy. So yeah, I like that about these guys. They're just your basic good troops.
Yeah, I think they're kind of the gold standard for good troops in a way for the game. And I think your point, Rainier, is very, very astute. These are such a great army or profile for beginners because they're kind of like the Space Marine of strategy battle game, right? Where they've got really well-rounded stats. They're very forgiving because of the fact that they have such well-rounded stats, and they're simple, right? They don't have any tricks. They don't have any weird special rules. They just have a solid, stat block with great options every attack they put out, whether it's at range or in combat, is going to be at strength 4, right? You know, they've got the great fight, they've got good defense that goes to really good defense. They've got at least average courage, though in their own army, they even have, we can talk about that a little bit later, but they even have some protection against, you know, having to roll for breaking. So they're just a wonderful all-round, very straightforward, very forgiving troop, and I like them a lot.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit, because you know these guys are the centerpiece of the list in a certain respect. Let's talk about the different ways you can kind of use these and build a list from them. And you know, I think we're going to spend a little extra time on this, because unlike some lists where you know the list is really about the heroes, this list is, the Isengard is not about the heroes. I mean, unless you're taking Saruman and Grima and, you know, kind of building the list around those two guys. Isengard is one of those lists where you're going to kind of depend on your warriors to do a bunch of killing. Because, you know, while your heroes are good, they're not great, and they're squishy and they'll die. So, you know, while your heroes are, you know, kind of killing whatever they kill before the enemy heroes hunt them down and kill them, yeah, it's the job of the Urukai warriors to actually break your opponent's army. And I think there are 3 ways this list can be built. And if people know a fourth, let me know. List 1 is the obvious one, where we're going to build a shield wall that's going to have a bunch of Urukai warriors with shield in the front. And then it's going to have a bunch of Urukai warriors with pike behind it, with, you know, maybe a smattering of crossbows for fire support. But that's not how the list is going to do its killing. The list is going to do its killing by walking the shield wall into the opponent and just kind of overbearing them with fight 4, strength 4 hits. And my thought on this is that the correct ratio of pikes to shields, if you're going to fight this way, is 1-to-1. I don't think you want, I mean, there's a temptation to put 2 pikes behind every shield, and I don't think that's the way to go, because you don't end up being wide enough. You'll get yourself surrounded, and then you know, kind of crushed in your big dense blob, where you won't have an opportunity to back up because you're fighting in all directions. However, having 1-to-1 pikes and shields allows you to go in, put a pike behind most guys. If the enemy ends up only charging some of your guys in front, because your pikes can support laterally, if you've got a line of shield in front and a line of pikes behind, and it comes in and hits, you know, like every other guy, then the shieldman who's standing behind a pikeman who's standing behind a shieldman who isn't contacted can actually support sideways, because he can support the pike that's supporting the guy that is actually in combat. And so you're still getting, you know, 2 pikes, 1 attack all the way around. And you can rejigger the pikes so that you get, you know, 2 pikes behind the guy that's fighting the hero, or 2 pikes behind the guy you really want to kill, one way or the other. So I think that's method 1. Method 2 is I want to kill with shooting and then force the enemy to charge me and then kill him in close combat. And I think the way you do this is you buy 1/3 crossbows, and somewhere on the order of you know, either 1/3 of your other figures or even up to 2/3 of your other figures are pikes. And what you do is you have, you know, kind of your block of crossbows that kind of sets up and shoots, and you have your pikes in a position where once the enemy charges your crossbows, they swing in behind your crossbows. So all of a sudden he's hitting 1 crossbow and 2 pikes. So that's the second way to do it, is to use the shooting to kill and then bring the enemy to you, and then kind of give him a nice solid shield wall. Well, it's not a shield wall because there are no shields, but nice solid pike phalanx backing up those crossbows when you hit. And then the third way to do it is with the berserkers, that, you know, we'll talk about later when we get there, where you have the berserkers who do the charging in and the killing, and then you have a bunch of Urukai warriors with pikes that go in and support the Berserkers, and maybe a few guys with shields just to kind of tie up guys on the flanks and shield there and not die so that the Berserkers don't get surrounded. I think those are the 3 ways to do it. Have I missed anything, guys?
There's allying in.
All right, fair enough. Talk about that.
Okay, so allying in with Dunlin. So I see these lists and I'm like, shoot, when I fight against them, and I'm like, shoot, I need to find a weakness. And it's the defense 5 that is the weakness. So actually, in my opinion, the Urukai warrior with shield, like Matt said, don't go like heavy on the pikes. Pikes, in my opinion, are situational in the list. So for me, you could even ally them with Dunland. What I do, just like to bring the horde, I bring a lot of, what are they called? Wildmen. You'll probably see that in the list that we're going to review today. And I use the shield guys to kind of like block the fire. And then once you hit combat 2, you have a 5 points Dunland warrior that can go to strength 4 paired with one of these guys that's defense 6 and fight 4. And it kind of like gives that extra punch. I know the Berserkers are 15 points. I always like to see the Dunland Dunland Wildmen. A Wildman with a shielded Urukai. That's 2 guys for the same points as a Berserker. Semi doing the same thing. Yeah, so that's what I like to do with them. I like to use them as like cover fire. And I like, again, to relate this to other armies. They remind me, because it's like, oh shoot, here comes a whole bunch of like shield and swords. They're not going to do anything. It works with Khazad-dûm though. It works with Durin's folk. Like, you do see heavy defense, just shield guys come in and they get the job done because they don't die, and these guys kill also. So that's what I like. Go heavy with a shield and get like something soft to come back and support it. Something cheap to economical. All about saving points so I can bring 60 models.
Yeah, no, I think Matt, you definitely covered it, right? I think if I was to go slightly a tier above your 3 play styles, my first decision point with Isengard is always, do I want to run Saruman or do I not want to run Saruman? And if I want to run Saruman, then you broadly go into what you said. You either kind of go with the Berserkers with some support, or you go into more of a shooty horde, or you just spam the warriors. And I 100% agree that you go 1-for-1 shield with pike, because even as your shields die, those pikes then collapse inward and just provide those supports down the line, right? And if I don't want to play Saruman, then I'm probably taking one of the legions, honestly, because unlike for many armies, the Isengard Legendary Legion that features the warriors, the Assault on Helm's Deep, is really, really good, right? So for me, ever since the legions have come out, it's kind of, do I want to run scouts? It's in a legion. Do I want to run warriors? Probably either doing Assault on Helm's Deep, or if I really want to run Saruman and Grima, then I kind of break down into, well, do I want to be more shooty? Do I want to have more of a horde? I actually also love the Wildmen, and the fact that the Oathmaker, who is a cheap hero, makes them fearless is a really nice thing to have in the list as well. Or you just do the kind of no frills, very long battle line of extremely solid warriors with a wizard backup. So that's kind of how I approach it. I think everything you said is correct. And my only addition would kind of be, do I want the wizard or do I want the legion?
I mean, I guess I would say, I mean, the only thing I disagree with in what you said is I think there is an army here that has neither the wizard nor the legion. And I have seen effective Isengard lists that just have warriors kind of backed up by the Lurtzes and the Uglux. Because I think they have, there is enough hitting power there kind of across the board with Lurtzes and Uglux and just warriors to make an effective killing army with, either of those 3 loadouts. Either I'm going to back up Berserkers with pikes, Berserkers and heroes with pikes, or I'm going to have shooters with maybe Verascu in the middle of them, and pikes behind that whole mess, or whatever. So I think there's a way to do that effectively even outside the Legendary Legion.
Oh, you're 100% right. You absolutely can. I'm just saying, when I make the decision point, for me, usually I'd rather take the Legion, because I think it's kind of the way I would want to play it without the wizard. So
fair enough. So, all right. All right, Rob, you want to take on the Isengard troll here?
The Isengard troll. So we have a troll with the Isengard keyword. Movement 6, fight 7, shoot 5, strength 7, defense 8, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, 4 courage. Heavy armor, sword, and shield is the war gear. Can swap its sword for a spear and can swap its shield for a war drum that affects all Isengard. It has terror and throw stones, which you know from basically all the other troll models, and it is 110 points. Now, there's not a whole lot to say because we've covered trolls of various stripes from various armies many times. The big unique thing about this troll is that it's got a shield, which not only means that it is a higher defense, but also that it can shield if you absolutely need it to at fight 7. And the fact that it can take a war drum for Isengard, right? Because most other war drums don't affect Isengard or they don't have one. For example, the Scout one only affects Uruks, whereas this one would also affect any war grinders and orcs that you might have in your list, or Dunlendings, I guess, because they do have the keyword, right? Yeah, no, they only have the Dunland keyword. Never mind. So I mean, it's a
unless
troll.
You're taking the Elf Maker, in which case you're
right.
Wildmen get the Isengard keyword.
Yeah, so and which you probably are if you're taking Wildmen because he's really good. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say. It's a troll. It hits as hard as a troll. It has all of the strengths and weaknesses of a troll, but with the added bonus of the shield, which is the only list where you can do that with a troll, to my knowledge. Right? They haven't come out with another shielded troll, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
However, I'm not sure that saves this troll. All right, let's have a vote. Who here would rather have this troll as opposed to 11 Urukai warriors with shield?
I was about to say the exact same thing, Matt. No, I would definitely take the 11 warriors over.
For those listening at home, no one is raising their hand.
Or
I have firmly planted my hand at my side.
Would you guys rather take this or 22 Wildmen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we could
crazy.
probably play a game called "Would you rather take this and put almost any other equivalent points in the list, and the troll would lose the battle." Let's be real. It's a gimmick. It's unique. If you happen to have one because you bought a starter set or something, and you're just getting into the game, it's a very fun, forgiving model. You can do some cool stuff with it. I would never take it.
Yeah,
it's
just because there's so many good options.
You could like throw him with a pike block and he could do like potentially well, but he can be shut down with like 1 transfix. He can be shut down with like 1 bad movement and stuff. And back to, I just think like Matt said, 11 warriors would do way better.
He can do troll things, but this army uniquely doesn't need troll things.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yep. No, that's true. Because Saruman can blast people. The Urukai warriors have enough killing power, and it's hard for this guy to have a role other than to stand in the middle of the battle line and occasionally kill a guy or two until the enemy hero comes up and assassinates him. So,
and they weren't in the movie, so most people aren't lining up to take them for theme reasons either.
Unlike Berserkers, which will come next, these guys were in the movie.
They were, and they went berserk.
Right.
Isn't Berserker, isn't that like an old Roman word for the wild Germanic tribes? Okay.
No, I mean I thought it was Norse, but
either way, they too fought naked.
Yeah,
they did, and so did the Celts in the British Isle. Okay, but anyways, so here we go. Urukai Berserker. He is fight 4.
And me at Renfest.
Yeah, TMI there, Rob.
Yeah. Rob goes to events.
Anyway, the Urukai Berserker.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So he has a Berserker blade. It's active. It is a 1.5-hand sword. If he wins a duel roll while fighting with the Berserker's blade as a 2-handed weapon, it may either assign strikes as normal or do 1 strength 4 hit at 1+2 wound on every model engaged in the fight or supporting the Berserker and in base contact, friend and foe. So that kind of goes back to the part of the movie when he goes on to Helm's Deep, the Deeping Wall, and he just like swings and starts knocking out Haldir's elves left and right. So
so cool.
Very cool that I mean it's a little baby spawn.
I'm gonna contest whether that's cool or not, but
it's cool.
Let's move on. We'll have a discussion later on.
I meant
Okay,
cool
he-
in the movie.
I
Continue. Yeah.
That's our way to cover up.
Yeah.
I mean, he's also oblivious to pain, which is a passive rule. Every time an Urukai Berserker suffers a wound, roll a d6. On a roll of a 6, the wound is ignored, exactly as if a point of fate has been spent. So very much like Gundabad Berserkers. And then he also is impervious to bowfire. An Urukai passive and Urukai Berserker count their defense characteristic as 6 when the enemy model makes a shooting attack against them. So
An
that's
enemy
probably,
model, read Legolas, makes a shooting attack against them.
yeah, just boom, and too little in the shoulder. And it's like, whatever. Also,
Yeah.
those weren't Legolas's arrows. So
Yeah.
did you guys realize that from the film?
No. Somebody
Yeah.
so Legolas was shooting and somebody else
He's got his arrows that he got from Gladriel, like the
Mhm.
yellow ones,
Mhm.
and the bows that hit him are the Gladrim ones that are long and white.
That's almost worse because it means that Legolas missed and
Yeah, that's
everybody
right.
else was hitting him.
No, they missed also because remember Aragorn said shoot them towards the deeping wall. So like they missed the deeping wall and hit the guy. So it's just the elves.
So what we're saying is that Aldor was the one shooting the Berserker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, 15 points. I personally don't think these guys are as good as they used to be, and that's why you don't see them. The one thing that I think it is the defense 5. The defense 5 in combat is really, really not as good as they used to be. We were raving about the Urukai warriors, and I was like, oh, the shield makes them amazing. The Berserker would have done well with a shield. And even with his new Oblivious to Pain special rule on a 6, he ignores it. I just think the defense 6 is more reliable in combat, especially. And then his bowfire thing, that's good against bows. But yeah, it's an interesting rule. Berserker Blade, I wouldn't use that much.
Yeah,
To be honest.
let's spend a little time with the special rules on this figure, because I think that's what this figure is kind of all about. Is this used to be a very simple figure that was it's a fight for two attack high courage model, send him in, and then they made it very complicated. But I think when things shake out, as you say, it's not that great. So, but let's talk about these rules in a little detail. So the Berserker Blade special rule says if he is fighting two-handed, that's the first problem. If he is getting a -1 on his dual rolls, and he wins, he can either do 2 attacks or do 1 strength 4 hit at +1 to wound on every model engaged in the fight or supporting the Berserker and in base contact. Boy, wait a second. I'm reading that. So the way this literally reads, if you had like 2 pikes supporting this guy, and you use this special rule, he would do a strength 4 hit to the 2 enemies that are engaged in the fight and the 2 pikes that are supporting the Berserker. And in base contact friend.
So I read it as only one of the pikes because it's on every model engaged in the fight or supporting the Berserker and in base contact, right?
So even that,
and in base contact.
Okay. So it would be the 1 pike, but he still hits his pike.
A 4+ to kill it, which he'd probably kill. It is kind of that weird thing to where it's like, if he's surrounded by fight 4 opponents, they're probably going to win because he's two-handing it. If you throw him in against Goblin Town or fight 3, they're not going to be dumb and be like, let me surround him and give him like the opportunity to kill me.
I mean, so I think they will, right?
Oh, that's true, because they just need to roll a 6.
They just need to roll a 6. Of course you do. I mean, I don't think you ever use this rule. No. I mean, the only time you would ever want to use this rule is if you've got 2 pikes behind this guy, which means that he's got his flanks covered, so he's at most fighting 2 other guys. He's going to get 2 attacks anyway. And why would you take the 2 attacks and kill your own guy behind? I mean, the
only situation I can think of is when you're actually actively trying to break or quarter yourself because you need the game to end.
Fair enough.
And so you put 2 guys in base contact with him, so he's getting 4 attacks to win, and you're probably going to roll the 6, especially if you're bannered, but then you're counting on the fact that he's also going to kill his 2 supports because you're trying to thin your own army. But that is such a fringe case, right?
Yep.
It's not thematic to the movie either, too. So
No, not at all, right? It's very gamey. It's not actually thematic at all.
Yeah.
It's just the only use I can think of for it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a good
so-
use though. Like that's a good.
Yeah, if you want to commit suicide, this is a good way to do
Yeah.
it. I think that's
You used to be able to do it with the bomb, right? Before they FAQ'd it, but now since you can't do that, maybe this is how you kill yourself. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Jasmine will do it, and then they'll FAQ it again after she plays it like that. It'll be like, oh, Jasmine did it. It's too overpowered.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
No,
Well, yeah. All right. So I think we all agree that the Berserker Blade rule will never be used.
But what about this? Do you guys think you would take him or as many of him as you used to see them play?
Well, but let's go through the special rules because I think that
Mhm.
impacts the answer to that question.
Mhm.
So the next special rule is Oblivious to Pain, which is basically you save wounds on a 6. So this is been moved over from the Gundabad Berserker special rule, and as you say, this is a minor annoyance, but because it's just a 6, happens so rarely that it doesn't really move the needle for me. I mean, does anybody disagree with that?
I don't, and it's kind of like you bring Urukai warriors because they're reliable. This is not reliable, and
Yeah, this is
that's
a
why I
gimmick.
have gripe. Yeah, it's a gimmick. That's why I have gripe with it. Because you're right. What maybe like one time he'll roll 6 3 times in a row, but like you need for this army, I think, to rely on these guys.
Yeah, I mean, you're
Yeah,
better off with
yeah.
defense 6, I think, is the
Yeah.
answer to this particular question.
I mean,
The
having
Bowfire
like
rule, though.
Fury on, okay, that's great, but you don't build a battle plan around it, right? Like if you're playing a casual game, you're gonna get those moments where, like Rainier said, he rolls a 6 a bunch of times and it's cool, ooh ah. But if you're thinking competitively, you don't bank on it. It's not reliable.
But what about this? It says this is not cumulative with other special rules that confer the same effect. So
Fury,
would
Fury.
that mean he can't use Fury, or he has to?
he gets no benefit from Channel Fury. If
Mhm.
basically,
Which
is
kind
what-
of like downgrades it too. if you think-
Yeah, I mean, which is not, by the way, like the Gundabad rule. The Gundabad
Mhm.
Berserkers do get it to stack with like the Signal Tower save,
Mhm.
which brings them up to a 5+ save, which actually that moves the needle
Yeah.
when you're saving off a third of your hits. But saving off 1 in 6 hits, I mean, you're much better off with defense 6 instead.
Mhm.
All right, so let's talk about impervious to bowfire and what it actually means. I'm going to posit the theory that what this should have been titled is impervious to elvish bowfire,
Mhm.
because you still need 6. You need 6s to kill this guy with ordinary bowfire, regardless of whether they're defense 5 or defense 6. And crossbows are going to kill them on 5s, regardless of whether they're defense 5 or defense 6. So what we're really talking about here is impervious to Legolas's bowfire
Mhm.
and that of other elves.
Yep.
But it does give you like the ask. I mean, he's hefty in price. He costs a lot, but you bring in Reavers and you are afraid of that bowfire. This, like, you just don't even have to worry about
Well,
bowfire.
elvish bowfire. I mean,
Yeah, Elvish or Citadel Guard bowfire.
Mhm.
yeah, okay,
or-
fair
yeah.
enough.
Or Dale Bowfire.
Oh,
Or da-
or Urukai Warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So basically, I guess that's what like makes me okay. I like these guys. You used to hide them in the back. Now you throw them in the front. But even with that, like,
but I mean, when they were
you-
defense 6, you still throw them. You threw them in the front. You didn't hide them
Yeah.
in the back because they used to be
What-
defense
what-
6 against everything.
well,
Yeah.
they can still die on a roll of a 6, and they're the same defense as the warrior. I'm just straight up. I can't get past that a warrior with a shield and a wildman with an axe are the same points, and that's again like why I just can't go to them.
Yeah. So sorry. I mean, I think where we come out is at 15 points, these guys are overpriced. And I mean, I think we've seen that in the market. They have greatly diminished, which doesn't mean that having a few of these guys isn't useful.
Mhm.
To kind of like go next to a hero or kind of stand in front of 2 pikes. And so you get basically 4 strength 4 attacks on something. But I'm not sure they're worth 15 points anymore.
I mean, I think that their courage 7, if you're not taking Fearless Wildmen, having a few of these to reliably charge terror is not a bad call, because at courage 7 they're going to do it. The 2 attacks, you're never using the Berserker Blade, but it is still 2 attacks, so you could stack 2 pikes and a banner behind them and have a bunch of strength 4 attacks when you really need to kill something. I would have rather that they didn't have most of these special rules and just had 2 wounds. Then I'd think they'd be a lot more interesting, right? But
it would be interesting, because they're still fight 4. I think what makes the half trolls like disgusting is that they're fight 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be kind of an interesting thing.
It would kind of have a similar effect to the making them tougher to bowfire and the 6-up fate save, but instead of complicating it with random variables, just give them 2 wounds, and then they're a little harder to take down.
Yeah,
it's thematic
that's fair.
too. I mean, like Aragorn stabs him through the stomach, they get shot by arrows. But again, I think it goes back to some people thought they were too powerful in the old edition. And they
were really good in the old edition, and you saw entire armies of them, right?
Of them,
Saruman with Berserkers. Yeah. So I mean, they were really good, and I get the idea that maybe they thought they were too good. I don't know if I agree with that, but I see where they're coming from with that. But they kind of overdid it.
Yeah, I
kind of feel like
this was yet another overcorrection in the nerfing phase. I mean, I think if you gave them 2 wounds, they might be slightly undercosted. I think
even if you raise their points.
Yeah, I was going to say 2 wounds, like
17
points, something around there.
But then you've got a 2 wound, courage 7, 2 attack model that you can sprinkle in that I think would be really interesting, right?
And the sprinkle's a word, because GW don't want you to spam them, because that's not thematic.
Yeah.
Like if they're 17 points, you still will see them on a lot of armies, but sprinkled in. If you take them as a horde, it's going to kind of skew with your numbers or whatever. So
yeah.
All right, shall we discuss the feral Urukai? I guess that's me.
Wait, what? My book just has a bunch of white out here.
Yeah.
Continue.
All right. So we come to the bastard children of the Isengard warrior list, which is the feral Urukai.
We're going to re-release them, and no one's going to buy them.
Yeah.
I literally bought a pack for completion of collection, and it will sit unpainted forever.
That's a shame. They look kind of cool.
They do look cool. I mean, they'd be great as kind of alternate Berserker figures, but you don't actually want to use this profile. All right, so let's discuss the profile. They're 13 points, so they're pretty pricey. They are, move 6. They're fight 4, just like Berserkers. They're strength 4, just like Berserkers. They're defense 4. That's not like Berserkers. They have 2 attacks, 1 wound, and they are courage 5. So they're not quite as courageous as Berserkers. They come with 2 swords, which I guess gives them the extra attack, but the Berserkers have that anyway, even though they've got 1 sword. And they have the Oblivious to Pain special rule. So they get that save of a 6. So basically, for 2 points less than an Urukai Berserker, you lose 2 courage, 1 defense. You lose the impervious to Elvish Bowfire special rule, which would actually be really good on these guys, since they're defense 4 anyway. You lose the Berserker Blade rule, which nobody cares about. Spend the 2 points and get the Urukai Berserker if this is the way you want to go. There is no reason to use these guys.
They're like Mirkwood Rangers without bows.
And what I don't understand is if you at least made this like the Scout Berserker, but they don't even get the woodland creature. So their picture is standing in woods.
It would have been cool if they just gave them 8 inches.
Yeah,
I think you could actually see them be taken. And I don't think that would overpower them too. Because again, defense 4 is not good. And 13 points is still just give them woodland creature and then an
8-inch move. Make them like really crazed turbo marauders, and then they're interesting, right? I actually would like to amend a previous statement. I said if I had to choose a troll or 9 of these guys, I think I'd go with the troll.
Go with the troll. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah,
so I think I amend my previous statement.
I do think it's amusing that this feral Urukai model has, they have some armor, and they're still defense 4. Whereas the Urukai Berserkers, who are equally oblivious to pain, are defense 5 in a loincloth.
Well, just get this. This will rub it in. He's shaped like Terry Crews, has metallic armor, and he's still the same defensive as Lake Town. Survivor of Lake Town,
which is an indictment.
I wish I got that
Town and this.
I wish I got that pop culture reference.
So
well, it's that thing where it's all we had these trends like Justice for Dale, all these things. Like, I don't know if there's like the opposite, injustice for like Lake Town. I don't know.
So I think that if we're talking about taking these guys as their own profile in an Isengard list, the answer is no and never. However, the model is pretty cool. I do like the model. So I have long considered picking up a bunch of these guys to convert into Corsair Reavers and just doing like a head swap of like a bushy Corsair head, because they have the two swords and they kind of look a little bit, crazed. And so the models are very cool. I want to find a reason to use them. That might be where they end up in my life, because there is no official Reaver model. But other than that, next.
It would be cool to do like a Maher conversion to use one of these guys.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do the next, which we're going to skip the Dunlending, folks, because that's an episode for another day. And that brings us to the Urukai Demolition Team. So I think this was yours, Rob. Have fun with it.
Oh, goodness gracious. This is a very short profile. So we've got
I thought this was me. Like, I had an anxiety attack and you said Robert. I was like, oh, thank goodness.
Well, you get the assault ballista, so you're not out of the woods yet.
That's true.
I'm going to tag team you, Matt.
This might be my commercial disclaimer read here with the amount of text we have to go through. But Demolition Team,
feel
80
free,
points.
Feel free to summarize.
You've got two Urukai warriors and a Berserker who are manning a bomb. The Urukai warriors can be equipped with a flaming brand for 1 point, and it has a slew of special rules. So first, demolition charges. It's a heavy object, which is covered by the rule book. To use it, to detonate it, it has to be dropped. A model with a flaming brand in base contact with the charge, which is not also engaged in combat, may attempt to set it off at the start of the fight phase. The model has to pass a courage test. If it fails, nothing happens. If it succeeds, you roll on the detonation table, which I'll get to. And then when it explodes, a demolition charge automatically strikes everything within 2 inches of the model, gates, doors, and of course, any models, friend or foe, that are in range of it. Each target struck automatically takes D6 wounds, regardless of its defense value. For cavalry, that's on both on the rider and the horse. And they did FAQ that the way that this works is you roll 1d6 and apply it to all models, as opposed to rolling a single d6 for every individual model. So if you roll a 1, everyone takes a wound. If you roll a 6, everyone takes 6 wounds. Desperate Detonations essentially covers that if you do not have flaming brands, you can still try to detonate it with, and it's a little bit harder to do. Special rules, flaming brands. A model carrying a flaming brand cannot use a two-handed weapon if it has one. If a model carrying a flaming brand is killed, the brand is extinguished and lost in the chaos of battle. And you need those to reliably detonate the bomb. Attacking the charge, it has a defensive 7 and 3 wounds. If the charge is wounded, roll a d6 per wound inflicted, and on a 6, it detonates. If a demolition charge is wounded by another bomb, it will detonate on a 4+ instead. If it's brought to 0 wounds, it explodes. Or if it's brought to 0 wounds, it doesn't explode. It just is removed from play and does nothing. And just like a war machine, an enemy can spend a fight phase in base contact with it to essentially disable it automatically. The detonation table, on a 1, nothing happens. On a 2 to 5, the charge explodes, and it works as we covered. You roll a d6, and everyone within 2 inches takes that many wounds. And on a 6, it's a Titanic explosion, which is the same mechanic, except that you roll 2d6 instead of d6. So everybody's taking 2d6 wounds. So, and then I should say now that it was also FAQ'd, whereas before you could just kind of do it whenever you wanted. Now you cannot detonate the charge unless there are 2 enemy models that would be caught within range of it. So
yes, which raises an interesting. So what it actually says is at least 2 enemy models or an enemy siege target within inches of the charge to detonate it, which means I believe that you cannot kill Smaug with this thing.
Interesting.
Why was the reason? Because people were
blowing up their whole army. They would get on the objectives and then they would quarter themselves with the demolition charge.
Why didn't they just do it to where they could blow it up if there's like one opponent model or one?
So I think people were also using it as a hero assassination weapon.
Mm-hmm. which is
I mean,
arguably what
what-
it should be for. So I don't know why that's a
Yeah.
problem.
What, I don't see why there's a problem too, because you have these mega heroes that are all kitted out, and there's like nothing to counter them.
Whenever I played against this pre-FAQ, like it was such a no-fly zone for my big hero, right? Because like you have to avoid it, or they can take up to 2d6 wounds automatically. Whereas now there's a lot of play where you just go in alone if you're a big enough hero and you're not worried about it
Yeah, you have
anymore,
like a
right?
Lendular Boromir, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Here we go," and then you're just like, "Okay, like I have nothing to counter you."
LSR charges in,
like
it's
that
like, go ahead,
change.
surround me. What do I care, right?
Yeah,
I didn't see it abused that much, but like, yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. The one person, I don't see.
This was the
problem with that.
anti-Jasmine FAQ.
Yeah.
And she was using it to assassinate other people's leaders. She was using it to basically get on the objectives and kill her own army. And
But they could have changed it just the kill your own army, no, but the assassination of leaders, I think it's essential,
I
especially
think
if you
that's
don't bring
probably
anything.
right. That maybe
mean,
you don't want
bring
enemy
Saruman.
model.
it does produce that odd circumstance where like you end up with a Urukai demolition charge fighting Smaug and just Smaug, and the demolition team is like, well, I guess we can't think of a use for this thing. Let's just leave it behind.
Yeah,
You
just
have
run
some
away from
coffee
it,
on it.
right?
You put a blanket
What could we
on top
possibly
of it,
do with
like,
this?
so-
Yeah, right.
So I think in terms of utility, I think in a regular list, I don't take this, especially with the FAQ. I think the only place you still see it would be in the Legendary Legion, where it also gets, I believe, a reroll on the detonation table, so it's more reliable. But
Yeah,
you used to see like 2 or 3. Now you're only going to see 1 max.
Yeah, I think that's right. I would point out there was another. This isn't actually an FAQ with a demolition charge requiring to kill 2 guys. It's technically an errata, just so you know where to look for it. And there's another errata that says if you roll a dud on the next turn, you get +1 to blow it up. So it won't dud twice, which of course is how real bombs work, right? When they don't go off the first time, that means they'll definitely go off the second time if you press the button again. That's that's how bombs
Just gotta
work.
slap it.
Yeah.
The guy jumps on the grenade and is like, oof, and then it goes off again, right?
The second time, yeah. Oh, thank God, it's a dud.
Oh my God, I'm saved. Boom.
Yeah, that's right. Just count to 3 again and it goes off. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not how bombs work, but this is a fantasy game. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you take one of these things.
I'm sorry. So the Legendary Legion, you roll 2 dice and pick the result, but functionally it lets you reroll. Yeah.
It's better.
The other thing to think about is whenever you get these, buy as many flaming brands as you can, because the way you
Absolutely.
nullify this particular device is not to actually attack the charge, because that never works. But you kill off the guys with the flaming brands, and after that you're left in the situation of the guys trying to bang on the thing with hammers to make it blow up. And in particular, you want to shoot the Berserker with the flaming brand first, because he's the one who's reliably going to pass the courage test.
Yes.
To blow the thing up.
Another place where that Berserker having 2 wounds rather than a plethora of weird rules would have been way cooler.
Yep. And then, as we all know, based on this errata, if you're going to try and if you have your big heroes in the vicinity of this bomb, make sure they're all alone.
But I mean, so that is kind of the play. One, you always take it in the Legion, but you do use it as a mini kind of like no-fly zone. So either you have the hero avoid that area, or they go in alone, which at least means they're alone and they're not supported by a bunch of buddies, right? So like it does have some like battlefield as well now. In addition, it's not as good at that as it used to be, and I think that the 2 model thing is very restrictive, but that's kind of how you use it.
All right,
The
fair
mounts
enough.
work. Could you blow up a fell beast in the back ranks?
No, because it says, let me look at the FAQ again, or the errata again. Sorry.
It kind of
model.
stinks, though.
At
But
least
you
2
could
enemy
really-
models.
Really, 2 models. Okay, you could really mess up with like battle lines and like freak people out and stuff. Which, if their battle lines staggered, your Urukai battle lines are gonna be that much stronger.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
so should we
I
do-
mean, battle lines really don't like this. And some tricks you can do are, you can form these battle lines that are basically curved, a very tight curve, so that when people charge in against you, then you move the bomb up into the middle of that kind of curved battle line and detonate the bomb. And, it gets not only, the two people in front, but everybody that curved around. Of course, if people know how the bomb works, they're not going to charge in against that curve, which is also fine with you because then you can just kind of advance and choose your battles. But
you could also probably put it on an objective and know that they're going to be sending in one person at a time, or you're going to blow it up. So the objective is either safe or, everyone dies. But
well, either that or they'll send two random dudes in at a time until you blow it up, and then they'll send one random dude in to turn after that when everybody's dead.
Stupid jumping on the grenade dead.
Yeah. All right, so that brings us to the last Isengard warrior here, which is the Isengard Assault Ballista. Take it away, Rainier.
I'm gonna tap you in. It's really late here, and my Southern's gonna come out, and it's gonna be. I'm gonna start slurring words and stuff.
All right, so this is the Isengard Assault Ballista, which comes in at a very reasonable 65 points. It is a siege engine with all the bells and whistles and special rules that come with it. The siege engine is strength 9, so it's doing strength 9 hits. It is defense 10. It has 4 wounds. It comes with a crew, and it comes with 3 Urukai warrior crew. One of which is a siege veteran. Those crew are all fight 4, strength 4, defense 5, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 3. So you get one guy with a sword. I think he's usually the siege veteran. You get one guy with a dagger, and the other guy carries an assault ballista bolt, which he can use as a pike if you really want to do that. So a little interesting part there. You can buy additional crew for 9 points. You can buy an Urukai engineer captain for 50 points. Never do that. That's all we're going to say about it and move on. And you can get superior construction for 15 points. I think the superior construction gives it additional range. I know it's nothing useful. I've never bought it, never been tempted to. So I think we're just going to move on from that. All right. And then the special rule is piercing shot. If a shot from an Isengard assault ballista hits a battlefield target, then they will suffer 1 single strength 9 hit, which will either kill them or not kill them. Additionally, if the target has strength 5 or lower, they will be knocked prone and flung d6 inches away from the ballista. Any model that the target passes over will also be knocked prone and suffer 1 strength 6 hit. If the target comes into contact with a piece of impassable terrain or a model that's strength 6 or higher, then it stops, it's knocked prone, and both the target and the obstacle suffer a strength 6 hit. So if you like shoot somebody into a fell beast with this, the fell beast will take a strength 6 hit. However, the fell beast is not knocked prone because of this, if that occurs. And it's worth. There's also a raise the ladders special rule where you can shoot ladders up. That's basically something that is useful only in the basically when you're doing scenario playing, you're storming Helm's Deep. Yeah. So I'm going to set that aside. I don't think we need to talk about that. And it has the accurate special rule. So it only scatters 3 inches rather than 6 inches. It is worth talking about. And let me find the FA. All right. So how exactly this piercing shot works is
it's a nightmare.
Yeah. The best. So this is it. The necessary explanation does not appear in the rules itself. You need to go to the FAQ, and then you need to go to the FAQ entry on the dwarf ballista, which has the same special rule of piercing shot. And you just need to assume that it also applies to the Isengard ballista. The way this works is you roll to hit, you roll scatter as normal. If the scatter hits the combat, you go through and you decide, if there's a combat, you decide which model is hit in the normal way. Once you have decided where that thing scatters, that's when you take the in the way rules for this thing. So one thing you can do if you are shot at by one of these assault ballistas and it does not get on target is you can choose a different target within 3 inches that will create a lot of in the ways for the shot, including the other guy's figures, right? So you can, if he's shooting at your hero with this thing, and you can shift it 3 inches to the right so that there's like 3 Urukai warriors with pikes in the way. That's a good way to, if he hits one of those Urukai with pikes in the way, that's who he's going to hit, and he'll punch through after that. So shooting this thing into the midst of a combat, even though it's evil and can do that, can be dangerous because of how you can shift the target there so that you suddenly get a lot of guys in the way. Then once you figure out which model is hit, they get the strength 9 hit. If they fail that strength 9 hit, they're considered hit by a siege weapon and they die. All the other models in the fight get a strength 9 hit, but they don't die. They just get a strength 9 hit. And it's only the model that, and they get knocked prone. And then only the model that gets hit gets flung back, and then you do the fling back rules from there.
But that had to be clarified in the FAQ, right? Because
that had to be
people
clarified.
Were arguing the whole combat gets flung.
Yeah, the whole combat, and or the whole combat suffers the strength 9 hit and then auto dies, and which, by the way, is a perfectly reasonable interpretation of the rules as written.
Right. I just think the siege engine rules in general need to be tightened whenever they get back to a new edition or something. But
yep.
Yeah, especially because each siege weapon has like its own different rule set.
Well, it's especially when it comes to siege engines hitting combats, right? It just there's so many weird, murky questions about how that interacts. And so at one point, I play against a lot of these here locally, and it's like, all right, I hit one gets flung D6 inches. It's like, no, that's not how it works. But you have to go to this FAQ, which then links to this FAQ, which then, downloads this PDF on your computer, and then someone calls you to get the rules, kind of thing.
It is confusing, yeah. But that said, like, strategically using this model, I like that for 65 points, you can freak out the opponent.
Yeah,
it's a great model. It's
for 65 points. It is a decent buy. It is particularly good in the Legendary Legion. In the Legendary Legion, the Assault on Helm's Deep Legendary Legion, this thing rerolls to hits and rerolls scatters. And that becomes a very scary siege weapon.
It suddenly becomes remarkably accurate, especially because the siege veteran can might things as well.
Yep.
Yeah, because you want these to counter Isengard. You want these heavy shooting armies that can kind of avoid it and like soften it up before you come. But this just hits you wherever, so you wind up rushing Isengard really fast, and you hit those like pike walls.
And demolition charges. I mean, that's kind of the gimmick of the Assault on Helm's Deep list, is you can't stand back because the Ballista will shoot you apart along with their supporting cast of crossbows. But if you charge forward, you're charging into the face of a demolition charge. So. And that's
and the Legion was initially by a lot of people criticized that there are no heroes with strike, but it's like, who needs strike when all your opponent's heroes are pinned to the floor the whole game? Any combat
and then blown
like
up.
18 crossbows or something too, like
it's
20
like
crossbows.
It's like, okay, how about you heroic strike against this bolt that just hit you in the face? So
here's an interesting thought. I mean, this doesn't have anything to do. Well, okay. I guess I would say this. There's some interactions, even if you're playing outside the Legendary Legion, there are some interesting things you can do with Saruman and these siege ballistas. And one of them is, because this thing is accurate and because Saruman has an 18-inch compel range, he can, from a distance, when you've got your hero and you've got like the one guy that's still within 3 inches, Saruman can either compel the hero away, or he can compel the one guy that was supposed to be the soak off for the ballista shot away, so that only the hero has a 3-inch empty bubble around him, so scatter doesn't matter anymore. That's one thing you can do with Saruman. You can move figures in front of other figures with Saruman, so that you can kind of go bowling and knock people off of horses with them. Another interesting thing that I just thought of is, if you're going to bring a demo team with Saruman, is he can help solve there's nobody within range of the hero, so I can't use the bomb to kill him.
Yeah.
if you can compel somebody within 2 inches of the hero, and so that you can use the bomb to kill him, is another interesting thought.
While you were talking, I was just thinking of that. Like, wait a minute, you could also use Saruman to bring people in range of the bomb to kill that hero, right? That's pretty. I wonder if there's like a weird allied list that has Saruman and like a ring wraith and a bomb that's just like constantly moving people towards bombs, but
maybe so.
Nothing I have written for today. So
yeah. All right. So on that note, we have now gone through all the warriors. We're going to go through, I think, 1 or 2 time permitting lists. And I know, Rob, I know you've got a list. Rainier, did you bring a list?
Yeah, I got one too.
Okay. All right. So why don't we go through those lists? Rob, you want to start off?
Yeah, so I wrote 2 lists. They're not particularly exciting. They're both legendary legions. One is Scouts, and the other one is the Assault on Helm's Deep. So I'll just go through the Assault on Helm's Deep one because it's pretty straightforward. Yeah. It is a 700-point list. It has 42 models in it. And the list is Warband 1 is an Urukai captain with shield who becomes kind of the big commander that gets the extra attacks and wounds. And he's got 4 warriors with a shield, 5 warriors with a pike, 4 warriors with crossbows, 1 warrior with a banner and shield, and 2 berserkers. Warband 2 is another Urukai captain, and he has got 5 warriors with shields, 5 warriors with pikes, and 4 warriors with crossbows, 1 berserker, and 1 demolition team with flaming brands for all of the crew, and then 2 Isengard siege ballistas. So no frills, pretty straightforward. A good amount of shooting. You're drawing people in with your crossbows and your ballistas into your battle line and into your bombs. So, and it's not very complicated, but it is proven to be very effective at high levels. You still have 42 models at 700 points. Heroes are not safe because you've got 2 bolt throwers, and both of them are remarkably accurate because of the Legion rules. And then when they get there, you still have a whole bunch of Urukai. So
yeah, it's good. Like, I like that. Like, whenever you bring a Legion, it's like, wow, it's straight from the movie, but you made it competitive. Like, like
this is one of the few Legions that I think are straight from the movie, but also highly competitive, right? Most of them straddle that middle ground. But
this is really good. And I like the idea that you even have 2. Like,
well, you can't hide from them, right?
One on each side. So even if you rush one, the other one's going to shoot you the whole game.
That's exactly right. 1 you can ignore, 2 you can't get away from, right?
Yeah.
So and like then you've got 2 bolt throwers and a bomb in the center. So like, where do you go, right?
Exactly.
How many crossbows?
8 crossbows total. All of the warriors cost the same amount of points. There is a total of 15, 20, 28 of them, and you can kind of jigger where you want the crossbows, pikes, and shields. I went for a fairly even mix of all of those, but you could go a little bit heavier on the crossbows or a little heavier on the shields.
They all cost the same points?
Yes.
You're not talking about the crossbows. You're talking about the pike or the shield.
Sorry, the pike and the shield. Yeah,
I
got the crossbow
okay.
costs a little more.
Yeah.
I got
okay. And then your captains have shield.
Mm-hmm. Captains have shields. There's a sprinkling of berserkers for that, as we talked about that Courage 7 specifically when you really need to lock something down. All of the flaming brands are given to all of the various warriors around the bomb so that you can more reliably set it off. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's no major like gotcha surprises that aren't already the ones you expect, but the ones you expect are hard to get away from. So, and
it's got multiple threats. Like you have your 2 ballistas, your bomb, the Urukai warriors, which are a threat by themselves, the captains, which are D7 fight 5. They're going to kill stuff.
Well, so if you keep the mega heroes pinned to the floor or away from an area with a bomb, those captains are going to bully troops just fine. So they're strength 5, right?
For sure. And the army itself is going to bully troops as well. I mean, we're looking at these like horde armies coming up. You know what I mean? Like Lake Town wouldn't do well against it. Lake Town Guard or like these different things. Fell Beast will like freak out about it as well. So yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah,
it's got good numbers, and then 8 crossbows is enough to threaten horses so that they don't get too many mobility tricks on you. So
fair enough.
Okay, should I go over this one?
Yeah.
So I have an 800 point list. I wanted to kind of like bring Isengard list that was unique and different compared to like the generic thing that we usually see. So my first warband is Lurtz. He has a drummer in his warband, a demolition team. Everyone has the fiery brands, 2 Dunland horse, 1 Crabane, 6 Urukai warriors with shield, and 3 with pike. Second warband is Ugluk. He has 6 Urukai warriors with shield, 3 with pike, 1 basic warrior without a shield to save points, and 1 Dunlin horse. And then after that, I have Gurulf. Gurulf is leading 3 Dunlin horse, 1 Crabane, 5 Dunlin bow, and 3 Dunlin wildmen with axe. And then I have the Oathmaker leading 12 wildmen with axe as well. So the gist of the army is it's 800 points, 12 might, 55 models, 6 cav, 2 Crabane, 3 heroic strikes, a heroic defense in Gurulf, which will kind of like delay the thing from happening. Different things are happening, and alerts for deployment is pretty good. Basic is kind of what I went over with why I don't choose berserkers. Is I have a ton of defense 6, even some pikes in the list, and then a lot of wildmen. Even if I go with the drum and the wildmen come a little later, they're still going to arrive, whether it's like maybe 1 turn later, and they're not going to get shot up that much. I have the Oathmaker to pass any courage tests for free. Oathmaker is also going to be that might battery. Gurulf, I really like. We're going to go over his profile in detail in a future episode, but he has heroic strike and heroic defense with 3 attacks. He's like the berserker hero that you always wanted, and he has the ability to call heroic defense for free every turn. So that's pretty good to just stop something from happening. Even if you come up against a battle line, just call heroic defense. And then he's gonna still at fight 5 kill stuff, but you're kind of have that in mind. Yeah, I have a lot of wildmen. They're all strength 4 because I gave them axes, because why not? Uglux thrown in there to heroic strike. So you have him and Lurtz. You don't really have to rely on Lurtz to do all the striking and killing when Ugluk and Gurulf have it as well. The kind of different sprinkled, I guess I call it my chocolate chips in the cookie, are the Cav. I think the Dunlin Cav for 12 points. They're defense 5. They're a Cav model, and they can go up to strength 5. So that, in my opinion, is really, really, really good for that many points. So I have them a lot for objective grabbers, flankers, just to do shenanigans, and 2 Crabane, because why not? Fly in the back, objective grabbers, trap models, and things like that. And at 55 points, the majority of the front line being defense 6, fight 4 is basically in the whole army. I even have some bow fire to, like, if I want to sprinkle a couple things. And of course the bomb is in there. If it's not used in a game, it's not detrimental, but if it is used, it's pretty detrimental. And I like the ability that it works good with this list, not just to kill heroes, but it works good with this list to kill battle lines, because one big burst to destroy one battle line, then I'm going to have the numbers and selective pike blocks here and there, surrounds here and there, and I can get in with it. But yeah, that's the base of the list. 12 might too. And
if you blow up a bunch of wild men, oh well.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I threw. I'm like, let me put some wild guys in here.
Back to the land with you, literally.
Yeah, I mean that is actually an interesting tactic. Yeah. It's like call the heroic move, send the wildmen in to like pin a bunch of the opponents, then just drive up the bomb behind them and just blow them all up.
Yeah, because you lose one, it's 5. 2 or 3 in the blast. That's 15 points. Like, it's who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Yeah.
I mean, so we didn't talk about them in this episode, but since you brought them up in your list, I actually think that the Dunlin stuff is really great to sprinkle in a non-Legion Isengard army, right? Mm-hmm. So like Crabane are fantastic for, mobile swarms. As you mentioned, the cavalry are great. Huskarls, I know they get a bad rap, but they're essentially better berserkers if you think about it. They've got berserker stats, but they've got bodyguard, right? So if you're taking them for the
they don't have berserker stats.
What's that?
They don't have fight 4.
No, but they can get to fight 4, right?
Unless they're supporting within 3 inches of a hero.
But they still have the defense 5 and they still have the strength 4. So if your whole point is to take them as like reliable courage, right?
They've got 1 attack too.
But I think the cav, the ability to, for 3 less points for a berserker, you have a model that goes 10 inches, a model that can dehorse, and a model that can go up to strength 5, defense 5, fight 3, not the best, but who cares?
Yeah.
when you have fight 4 sprinkled into the list, it's like, why not? I mean, I was talking to Alisha the other day about these. It's just for 12 points, someone better make a big Forge World purchase. Like, these guys are pretty good.
Yeah, they're really
when
good.
You complement something.
What the
so I really like what you have there.
No,
the cavalry.
The cavalry.
Oh, the cavalry. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Rob, did you have another list you wanted to share, or we
I can.
We have a small amount of time.
So I also quickly threw together one of the scout legions, and it's the Uglux Scouts, which I like a little bit better than the other one. And I threw it together precisely because it focuses on Isengard warriors and features Snaga, which were both on the episode today. Also very straightforward. So I've got Ugluk. He is leading 12 Marauders. Right now I've got it written as 7 of them with shield, 4 of them with bow, and 1 with banner and shield. But again, because the points are pretty much identical, you could make it half bows or half shields, however you want to do it. Then you have Mauher reading, again, 12 Urukai Scouts, and all of them are obviously Marauders. 7 with shields, 4 with bow, and 1 is a drummer. You then have a scout captain, again, with 12 scouts, 8 Marauders with shields, 4 with bow. And then I've got Grishnak with 12 orcs with spears, and Snaga with 12 orcs with spears. And this is at 800 points, but has 65 models.
Oh, wow.
And so it's got, plentiful access to march. It's got a drum. And because of the fact that you're padding out the list with 24 orcs, if you wanted, you could go heavy on the Isengard bows as well to get a lot of, fast moving strength 3 bows. Other than that, you've got, a whole bunch of strength 4 scouts that are running into your face at 8 inches and surrounding you. And because it has the animosity, when you can get orcs and scouts into the same combat, you get +1 to wound, and it has a lot of mobility and a lot of models. So
yeah, I bumped into one of a list very much like this, except it was 895 points, so I think it had 70 something models.
Oh God,
and,
right, yeah,
and it's this is a scary list because it's everywhere and it's everywhere quickly.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, you've got a whole lot of Uruks, and then you've got a bunch of orcs with spears. So even though the scouts themselves don't have spear supports, the orcs can then provide that for you. And it actually has a good amount of might because Grishnak and Snaga are both 3 might, right? You've got 2 from the captain, 3 from Ugluk, another 2 from Mauher. So, and you don't have to call marches because of the drummer, generally speaking. So yeah, it's just, it's in your face with a heck of a lot of models, most of which are strength 4.
I like the idea of spamming up the shooting too, because it's a lot of times people see like shooting in SPG and they think, okay, you're going to hold back and do these different things. But if you are really good in the movement phase and you're a really good shooter in the game, like that is the most dangerous part, is when you can actually position your shooting to think 2 or 3 turns ahead, where things are going to go. And of course, like maybe surround them, and you don't even have to surround them and come in. But when the battle lines hit, maybe you have a warband of strength 3 bows on like the left wing, and they're just pummeling all the spear support that your opponent has. Like it's pretty good. Like I like the list, and for all those models too, like Lord have mercy.
Well, and especially with evil lists, right? Because you have that flexibility to shoot into combats if you need to, so you can deny hero combats or just make extra kills. And because this list has so many models, you're actually probably going to get Grishnak's rule to kick off. You surround a hero and throw Grishnak in, and then maybe get a strike in there, and you're gonna actually threaten models you have no business threatening, just because with 8-inch move and 65 models at this points level, you're probably going to be able to envelop, right, in many cases. So
right,
that's really good.
All right. So well, that's the podcast, folks. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Guys. Have a good one.
Don't forget to let us know what future episodes you guys want us to like talk about and stuff.
Yep. Sounds good.
See you guys.